Hey guys.
Welcome to our second episode of the Down Home podcast. We are hoping to get better and better at this. We are sorry for all the technical difficulties that we had for our first one.
The last one was rough. We had video cameras go out. We had microphones go out. We had problems getting this couch down to our basement. And today was honestly no different.
It took us all day to get here. We just had microphone problems and whatnot, but we are happy to be here and we're not going to give up. We're going to keep going, and we are excited to just finish up our story of the rest of how our lives have gone since getting engaged and married. And it will be nice to kind of finish off this episode so we can start getting into fun topics and cool guests and whatnot. So let's just hop right into it.
Yeah, let's do it. So where did we leave off last time?
I think we just left off after getting engaged. So
yeah,
can kind of share a little bit about our wedding. Nothing too crazy about our wedding, but I think we kind of wanted to talk about just kind of what has transpired since being married. And
it's like, what's happened the past 7 years, babe? What's gone on in our
life? We've kind of had a wild ride, I feel like.
We've lived in 3 states.
Yeah.
We've probably been on like 150 airplanes.
Yeah,
like
we were
Beckham alone has been on probably 100 airplanes.
Yeah.
Started 4 different companies, I think. Had 3 kids.
Probably should have counted all of these things before we started.
Yeah,
we're just
these
going
might not
for
be
it.
accurate, but yeah, 3 kids. That one's accurate.
Hopefully that one's accurate.
Maybe a 4th coming, but I'm snipped, so you have to use your imagination of how that would work.
We are planning on adopting. We have.
Oh, we're dropping it like it's hot right here. Right here, exclusive on Down Home Podcast, baby.
We are planning on adopting. I feel like we've mentioned wanting to adopt for a long time.
Let's do a whole episode on adoption because I think it's
just why
story.
We want to, what's led us to this spot, and there's been a lot of decisions and talking and counseling together about that. So that's a big decision that we have been hoping to do for years and years now. And Tay is snipped, so we will not be having any more of our own unless for some reason it goes wrong.
I do have to drop this hot news. Sid thought she was pregnant today. I ran to Walmart to grab some like wires for the podcast, and I look at my phone and I get a text from Sid that says, "Will you please buy a pregnancy test?" I was like, oh.
He literally just laughed. He did the ha to the text. And I was like, okay, is that a yes? Is that a no? He comes home and he doesn't have one. I was like, why didn't you buy one for me? I was like, you bought yourself. I looked at the receipts to see if you bought one. I was like, you bought yourself little treats and you didn't get me a pregnancy test?
Those Reese's Easter egg things. It was calling my name. What are those called?
Just the eggs?
The eggs. Yeah, it was calling my name.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, ended up starting my period later. Usually my period is spot on. Like the morning of the day I'm supposed to start my period, I start. So when I woke up and I hadn't started, I was like, I could be pregnant. Oh my gosh. And I had all these symptoms prior of being pregnant. So I thought for sure I was, because there's like this 1% chance that at the SNP job, you can still get pregnant. Anyways,
she's
not pregnant. No, I'm actually not hoping for that. I don't know what I would have done. We would have just taken it on with faith, but we are not pregnant. So anyways,
good thing.
Hopping into our wedding day.
Yeah.
It was just the best day ever. I don't know if there's a lot to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can do an episode on the actual wedding day. There was some funny stories, but I think we're trying to like just fast forward the past 7 years and everything that's happened so that listeners can just know the journey and how
we want people to be able to refer back to things they learned in this episode about our life and different places we've lived and things that we've experienced, because we will probably reference them a lot in the upcoming podcasts, just because all of these experiences have just helped us learn new things and grow in different ways, and we'll definitely refer back to them for that reason. So
and I think one of the big things that we have learned the past 7 years is that as we look back on our journey, that God's hand has been so prevalent and so powerfully intertwined in all these different adventures that we'll talk about. And I just know that we have felt him every single time there's been like a pivotal move, whether it was like out of state or to have another kid or to get married. You heard career change. Yeah, career change was a big one since we first got married. But even just getting engaged, like God has been very aware, and he can be aware for every person that
I think we felt him in the moments, but even looking back, we see him even more, because in the moments you're just trying to figure it out and do what you feel is right and what you feel inspired to do from the Lord. But looking back, it's almost like you see miracle after miracle that happened to get you on the right path. And so that's why it's really cool to look back on some of the things that we've gone through. So we get married. September 24th.
I remember, guys, I promise. September 24th.
We, our first place we lived was Lehigh, Utah. We lived in an apartment up on the mountain, a little bit up on the mountain, and it was freezing cold.
Traverse Mountain. Yep.
Traverse Mountain. It was a great area. Tay and I, when we first got married, even just a couple months in, I started experiencing, just to hop right in, I started experiencing some really difficult mental health problems and just mental health sickness things. So our marriage was definitely, our first year of marriage was very different than we expected, because of just some things that I was struggling with and a lot of growth and learning I had to do on my part. So I don't think we expected our first year of marriage to go the way it did. I feel like most people's first year is very not easy, but just you're still on that honeymoon butterfly high.
Yeah.
And our first couple months were definitely that. But after just kind of getting...
Like about 4 or 5 months, is when everything kind of started really climaxing with your mental health. And we,
I think it was even just a few months. We were, it was the holidays and we got married in September. So it was actually just a couple months. And
that's right.
I think I just kind of got hit with a reality of life. I don't know if I was as prepared for life as I thought. I was really young when we got married and had just a lot of growing and learning to do.
I'm a tough cookie to be married to.
No, it really, Tay was amazing, and he was so patient through all of it, and tried to learn as much as he could about mental health, because he didn't know a lot about it. And he was really patient with me, and for really forgiving in moments when I feel like he didn't have to be. So I'm very, very grateful for
I would do it again a million times.
Him just sticking by my side, because he didn't have to stick by my side. I wouldn't have blamed him if he didn't. So anyways, that whole first year of marriage, I just want to mention, we do plan to dedicate a whole episode to that specific time frame and do a whole podcast on talking about mental health and mental health awareness. And so we are going to save that whole story. And the things that we learned. Because there were a lot of things. Obviously, there's so many things that have happened since that first year, 6 months to a year, that can take up this full hour. And that 6 months to a year can take up a full hour too. Right. So I think we'll leave that for a different episode, a special episode about mental health and diving deeper. I did do an episode on my mental health and kind of what I went through with my friends. But I will on their podcast, but I think even just talking more in perspective of our marriage and, what helped us get through it. And
if you're curious, their podcast is Codependent, by Kenzie and Jamie. And I'm not sure what podcast number, but
but we'll also talk about that every last detail, on here too. And
it's really important.
Something we really want to stress the importance of. So for now, we're going to kind of skip over that first year. And I think one of the defining moments after kind of healing from that time and getting through that time was a trip that we went on for our honeymoon. think it was our honeymoon.
Yeah.
Or Valentine's Day the next year, something around that time where we went to California, and it was just us, and it was an expensive trip at the time because obviously when you're newlyweds and you're still figuring things out.
Yeah.
We went on this trip, and we stayed in a really cute Airbnb, and it was a really healing trip for us, and we fell in love with California and the Newport Beach area, Laguna Beach area, and we just kind of reconnected our souls, and healing just for both of us in a lot of ways.
I think that trip was not only healing, but planted a little seed that would sprout like a year or two later. Yeah. So we came back from that trip. It was about that time frame, actually, we decided to purchase our first home or build our first home just in a tract home neighborhood in Vineyard, Utah. And
it's so funny because when we moved into that house, we were like, we'll probably be here for like 5 to 10 years.
Or at least 3 to 5 years, I think is
maybe it was 3 to 5 that we said, but we were expecting to be there 4 years, like at least maybe have 2 kids by the time we left. I don't know.
Maybe at like this stage with 3 kids, like have a new home, but things changed after about a year of being there.
We were only there for a year. So we lived in Vineyard, Utah for a year. We had Beckham in Vineyard.
What happened in that home? Do you remember?
So we started we started Cora in that home.
Yeah, it was called Cora.
When we first got married, Tay was working corporate. Yeah. It was solar, right? Or was it?
No, it was like a home tech company.
You were working solar though at first, and then switched over to home tech.
Yeah.
He was the he was the CMO for both. Right. So you had the same title at both places. Right. And you can kind of tell the story about how Cora came about. It was an activewear brand.
Yeah, I think the only reason that I even want to talk about it is like there are so many questions about this. It's like one of the most frequent questions is like, how did you start Acta or Cora, and how did it all happen? And so I think it's worth probably keeping this part of the story and the journey because it's kind of what sent us to California, and it sent us to Arizona, and it's a part of it. So it's
a huge part of everything that's gotten us to where we are at.
Right.
Like Cora and Acta was such a huge blessing.
Right. So I was working corporate for about 2 years and just like itching to get back into entrepreneurship and always coming up with little ideas and trying to start different businesses. And not all of them worked. I started a solar company that did one job and then closed. It just wasn't my vibe. But anyways, with Cora and Acta, I think we can get into the reasons of like how the idea transpired another time. Let's keep this about how it related to like our marriage and how that affected our family life and stuff. So it was like kind of a big deal to start, and obviously it was in the athletic wear world, and so I wanted to make sure that Sid was fully on board with everything, and I think that she felt good and that it was inspired.
And I think that the mission of the brand really spoke to me too. Yeah. It was all about just trying to change the gym culture and mindset to also just thinking about like who you are on the inside and becoming the best version of yourself in all aspects, and not just your looks. And that's really one of the huge reasons why he started it in the first place. Yep. And
so when we started it, I decided to basically invest our life savings into the initial inventory. And
it was a big leap of faith, I will say. He came to me with like a drawing on a piece of paper of the logo. We were at a Mexican restaurant in Orem for dinner, and he pulled out this piece of paper and showed me and kind of pitched me on the idea. And I was like, okay, like this is like feels good. We prayed about it. And after we both felt super good about it, we just went full force into investing in it once we felt good about it. And we didn't want to ask for any family's help financially or even just support by like buying our
so we actually kept it a secret. We literally launched it without anyone knowing.
No one in our family, none of our friends knew that this brand was ours until
That's so crazy.
I don't even know how many months into it was that we told our family that we own this activewear brand.
Yeah. The boxes came.
Yeah, we had 3 boxes of leggings that we used our life savings for, and they came, and I hadn't ever seen them. We Tay obviously designed them, but we hadn't gotten a sample of them, I don't think, because we were like, let's just do this. We don't have time. We just want to launch it at a certain date. And we just go full force. We get these 3 boxes of legging show up at our house, and Tay was, I just still remember the day that those boxes showed up, and Tay was so excited. And I could not tell him that these leggings just completely sucked. Like they came,
they were so bad,
and the material was so bad. The colors were a little bit off, but he was so excited and proud. And I was like, you know what? Like,
I was seeing stars.
This is making him so happy, and we're gonna keep going with it, because as long as we just make our money back, we'll be good.
Yeah, that was his goal.
He was still working corporate, so he still had his income. We were doing this on the side. We were living in our house that we built in Vineyard, and I was pregnant with Beckham, our first, and so obviously it was a 4-bedroom house. One of them was a nursery, one of them was a guest room, and one of them was the Cora office.
Yes. And on February 22nd, we launched this brand and have all of our life savings on the line, and within 1 week they somehow all sell out. And like, this is not sold to like our family or our friends or anything.
We're not using our personal brands to sell it. Right. No one knows it's ours. We were completely shocked that these sell out.
Yeah, Sid was like, what? Like, I was just hoping we'd make our money back. So we take that money, we reinvest it into more inventory, and just do that again and again and again and again and again. And pretty soon, I think a couple months after, it was probably only like actually 2 months, Sid was fully 9 months pregnant, and I was working full time. So the schedule was literally like, I go to work, I work from 9 to 5, I come home, grab a really quick dinner, then we head up to the office, and it's just...
We just used one of the rooms in our home that we had in Vineyard for an office, and we were just full on pack city mode.
It was just packing and packing and packing. We have orders and orders and orders, boxes throughout the whole hallway. So these little sticky things that came off the bag that would like stick all over your clothes.
We just didn't care. We were like, whatever. They're all of our clothes are all over our house. Our house is a warehouse at this point. Eventually, we had to like ask family to come help package the orders once they knew about the business.
It was like 2 months later. But so Sid had done that for like 2 months. She was 9 months pregnant. Keep in mind, like Beckham was literally due maybe like 7 or 8 months, but at the very end, it was 9 months pregnant. And 2 weeks before Beckham is born, our first son, I decide to leave my corporate job.
Well, we always said once we're making your same income through Cora, then you can leave your corporate job. We wanted to still be able to.
Still though, brand new business is only like 3 months old.
It's still risky for sure, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. That's just
like kind of the personality I am. I love the adventure.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes.
Tay would wake up at 5 a.m., go to the post office, send the orders out. I was home all day with just doing nothing. So I was just pregnant, sitting on my butt. So I would answer customer service emails all day long. And by the end of like those few months of doing those customer service emails, I was so done.
She was done.
We obviously ended up hiring for customer service and whatnot, but
so I ended up leaving my corporate job, and
it was only a couple weeks before
lost our health insurance for having Beckham. Yeah. So, and Beckham came to the world and just changed our life forever.
Literally the day my water broke, Tay was moving into his. The day my water broke, Tay was moving into the office because we were finally like, we have too much inventory now. We have a baby coming. We just need to get an office and move this out of our house. And he wasn't coming anytime soon. I was a week over. So I was like, we're making it to my due date. We're making it to my induction date.
Sid's getting induced.
So we'll just take this weekend to move into the office.
The car had been packed for a baby for weeks, like probably for like 6 weeks straight. The car seat is in there, the hospital bag, everything. And the day that I decided to take everything out and put in all the office stuff, all the inventory, and start moving it,
literally, Tay's packing up the car. He comes into the house and says, Sid, let's go. Like, we need to get to the office. Yeah. And I was like, Tay! And like, he walks in. I'm standing at the top of the stairs. My pants are down. There's water everywhere. My water had broke.
I was we were like, are you kidding?
Like, unpack
the car is full of inventory and all sorts of things. Like,
we unpacked the car, put the car seat back in, and we had a baby and moved into an office that same week. Yeah. But it was like the best of times, because we just look back on those times and it was everything we could have asked for and more. Yeah. Miracles were happening. Like, it was just amazing.
One thing I want to touch on with the birth of Beckham, there's a lot of details, but just the one thing, and then we can move forward, is just when Beckham came into the world, it's just all of our kids felt this way. It was just a bright, bright day, but just the knowledge and from heaven, like our family had started, and like there were angels in that room, and it was just the best day ever. It was
a really special day.
Yeah.
I mean, all days when your baby comes to the world are so special,
Yeah,
but our
each
family
kid
had
felt
started.
similar.
Tay had just left his corporate job. So at that point, we're still living in Vineyard. Beckham was probably about 6 months old at the time.
Yeah.
And we decide that we are going to move away. We are going to.
The reason why is, I guess my excuse was like, hey, let's go out to the LA area so that we can find content creators and videographers and photographers that are super talented to help expand the brand, because the brand was really brand heavy with image content and stuff for social, and it'll be easier like that. So
we had been talking for a while that we didn't want to raise our family in Utah.
Yeah, especially, no offense, but like just not Utah County.
We just weren't in love with some of the things. We had obviously been living in Utah County, and we were like, we just don't want to raise our family in Utah, so we're going to move. We had visited Arizona. We had visited California a few times. We ultimately...
We also visited Texas.
Yeah, we went to Texas. We were trying to figure out where we wanted to be, and we ultimately decided through a lot of prayer and counseling together that we wanted to eventually like end up in Arizona. And we said for a long time that we were going to live there and raise our kids there.
Yeah.
But in between Utah to Arizona, we wanted to have like this little adventure, and move to California, do some cool things with the business, and then end up in Arizona, ultimately build our forever home there, raise our family there.
Obviously, we'll doing that, and then it just
obviously we'll get to what happened after. But so 6 months, Beckham is 6 months old. We end up moving to Southern California.
Yeah,
we moved to Dana Point, and that was such a little dream of, and just like we call it like a little blip of life that kind of feels surreal because it was like so really short.
Yeah.
But it was so amazing, and we just had like our little Beckham, and Tay had this growing company, and we were just on our own for the first time without our family, and just growing on our own was really, really good for us. Living 5 minutes from the beach, and definitely a different lifestyle than what we had in Vineyard. Amazing people were around us.
Oh, I love the people out there.
Yeah,
they're so awesome. Our ward was awesome. Yeah. So we left an office and a warehouse in Utah of ACTA and decided to go open a marketing office in Dana Point, San Clemente area, which is by Laguna Beach.
Sorry, we keep switching off between ACTA and Cora. We ended up switching the name.
Yeah, that's a whole topic.
That's a whole other topic, but
yeah.
We ended up switching the name from Cora to ACTA, so we can refer to it as ACTA now, but it started as Cora.
It's ACTA now, but yeah, so like Sid said, that time there, which was about a year, just felt like a dream. I don't really know how else to express it besides like, it just was like surreal. Like, remember we had our like Jeep, and like, we just would have little Beckham, which when you have one kid, it's hard, but it's nothing like having multiple kids. Once you have 3 kids,
you're like, oh, one was a breeze.
Yeah,
obviously when you only have one kid and it's still new, it's like, that's hard. Like, you think it's hard, and then you have 3 and you're like, I want to go like back to the days.
Like 6, 7, 8, but yeah, exactly. And we just, I don't know, honestly, like lived up the SoCal lifestyle.
It was so fun.
Learned to surf, or tried to.
We knew that was like a very short term like thing. And so we just had this cute little rental like close to the beach, but we knew it wasn't like a long term thing. So we tried not to get too attached, but eventually we were like, maybe we should live here for like long term.
Yeah.
But we had to keep going back to
we did look for homes.
We did. We were like getting serious for a minute, and we had to stop ourselves and remind ourselves of what our plan was, what we felt like was right for our family, and stick to that. So after about a year of living in California, that is when we jumped over and moved to Arizona. We did get pregnant with Haven in Arizona, or we got pregnant with Haven in California. We found out he was a boy in California, and then we ended up moving to Arizona while I was pregnant with him.
towards the end of our time in California, we were just reminded of the answer to our prayers that was really clear that we got in the temple, that California was going to be temporary and the true amount of time we would spend would be in Arizona. And so we ended up going on a few trips to Arizona. We really were interested in like the Scottsdale, specifically Arcadia area of Scottsdale. But when we got out there, it just really wasn't family friendly. And
as family friendly as we wanted. There's definitely families there, but just as I was pregnant with Haven.
I think the big thing though, for me, at least, maybe not for you, but for me, we were asking the realtor, like, how's it in high school for kids here? And he was like, oh, like kids pull up in like Bentleys and Range Rovers. And I was just like, yo, I do no offense to my kids if they're listening in the future. Sorry, but daddy doesn't want you to have a Bentley. It's just not the way life should be, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely a different world in Arcadia and Scottsdale. So beautiful. So like,
it's ideal. It's like a Newport transplant in Arizona. It's so pretty.
So pretty. But we wanted something a little bit more,
down home
for our family. So we just kept looking till something felt right. And we found this little neighborhood on one of our trips in Queen Creek, Arizona, which at the time, it's pretty big now. It's growing a lot. There's a lot of new things out there. They even have Costco out there. But at the time, it was more of a smaller town. And I wouldn't say it's as small as it once was, but because I used to live in Arizona, but it wasn't as big as like Gilbert and Mesa at the time. Right. So we found this really beautiful neighborhood called the Pecans, which was
like an old pecan grove that a guy bought and then turned it into a neighborhood. So when you drive in, there's just like these cascading trees that are obviously green leaves and all the grass is green. It feels kind of like a Utah neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I could definitely raise my family here.
Because Tay's problem with Arizona was like, why are there just rocks everywhere? Like, why isn't there grass?
Rocks.
There's no mountains. So it was definitely a switch of lifestyle for Tay to move to Arizona. But when we found the Pecans, it was like, we can kind of have seasons in a way, like the leaves kind of turned and then fell off during the fall and winter, and then they came back in the spring. And
and there's also like a little lake by the neighborhood, and it was just really charming. We fell in love super hard, and honestly, I still love that.
Yeah, still amazing. Today. We found a lot for sale in there, and it felt really right. And I think we signed on it while we were visiting still. And went home to California, got packed up. I got pregnant with Haven, in California, moved to, Arizona pregnant still. And
which we just rented like a town home while we were building our
which
quote
ended
unquote
up
forever home.
It's funny because we look back at videos and we're like, this is our forever home. We can't wait to raise our kids here. But we ended up being in our town home for 2 years, which was it's still longer than we have lived anywhere.
Yeah.
Gilbert, Arizona.
In we were about BB Living townhome. Shout out BB Living. Let's go.
Honestly, though, looking back, it was just like we drive past it when we visit, and we're like, we had so many great memories at the BB Living townhomes.
No, it was good. It was amazing to live in Arizona for 2 years. Like Sid mentioned, that is the longest we've ever lived anywhere. We've only lived in Utah, or I guess Heber and Midway now for about 1.5 years. So we are coming up on 2 years, and that will take the spot for Gilbert. But so while we lived there, we just had incredible experiences. Sid met some of her best friends ever, and we spent those 2 years designing and building our quote unquote dream home. And while also continuing to grow ACTA, and we opened up an office in Gilbert, and hired employees there, opened a warehouse in Gilbert, and ended up transferring everything for ACTA down to Arizona and combined everything.
We just set up shop there. We thought we were going to raise our kids there, and I ended up having Haven in Arizona in 2020.
Oh man, that was wild.
That was rough.
Haven was born April 2020.
So it was literally right when COVID hit. Like COVID, I think, hit in March.
Yeah.
So we still didn't know. He was born April 8th, and we still didn't know a lot about COVID. And so it was really scary for a lot of people at the time because we just didn't know the seriousness of it yet. We were lucky that Tay could even be in the hospital room with me. Obviously, we didn't live by family.
I almost wasn't able to be in the hospital room.
We didn't live by family, so they were all planning to come and be there to meet him and to help me with Beckham and all of just the things that come along with having a newborn. No one could come because no one could travel. No one could fly in an airplane. People were really scared to drive. It was a lot as a new mom because I get really bad postpartum anxiety, like even more than postpartum depression. And so on top of all of that, it was like this new virus that I wasn't sure. I remember my hands were cracked so bad from washing so much because I was so scared of my newborn getting COVID that they were just bleeding.
We just like didn't know what it was. Obviously know now, and it's not what we thought.
If I would have known what I did, or I wish, obviously if I know now what I do, if I knew then what I know now, I would have handled it differently. But it was obviously at the moment just new and scary for a new mom. And I could not leave my house. It was a ghost town everywhere. You couldn't go out to dinner. You couldn't go anywhere for kids. I had a 2-year-old little boy because they're only 22 months apart. And I couldn't leave the house with him. He had so much energy. He was trying to adjust to a new brother. Tay was obviously working and I was completely alone. And so many people say like 2 to 3 is harder because you're outnumbered.
And we also had no family.
I hadn't met a lot of friends yet because we hadn't lived there very long. So I felt alone in that respect. It was hard. 1 to 2 is so much harder for me than 2 to 3 because of the situation that we were in.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I think after a few months of kind of figuring out what COVID was and understanding more about that, we ended up taking a road trip to Utah to see our family because I just needed to go and see them, let them meet Haven.
Yeah. It actually wasn't a couple months. I think it was like 2 weeks and we road tripped up there.
He was really small.
Yeah, he was like 2 weeks. Maybe he was pretty much a newborn. We literally just were like, we drove up there.
We surprised them.
They had no idea. They were so excited to meet Haven, but they didn't know what was going on with COVID and if they could come and fly to us or even drive.
No, they definitely couldn't fly at the time, but
they really wanted to. We just, we weren't.
We were also like, we don't really want people flying, coming off of an airplane, meeting our new baby. So we'll just be more comfortable if we go surprise them. We can be really careful on our road trip. We know what we've touched. We know what we've done to keep ourselves safe. So we went and saw our family. That was amazing. That's where Haven spent his first 2 years of life, which is so funny. Looking back. Arizona.
BB living, baby.
Also, the crazy thing is all of our babies have been conceived in California.
Yeah.
We have been either on a trip or living in California when we have conceived our babies. And so we ended up...
well, this is what happened. So with Beckham, we were on a trip and we conceived Beckham. It was actually our anniversary trip. And anyway, then... Haven, obviously we were living in California. He was conceived there and we knew that both of them were conceived in California. So we decided that for Sunny, we knew when Sid was ovulating and we literally took a trip to California to just try.
Well, we were also going for Beckham's third birthday. Yeah. His third birthday.
Yeah.
Because we were like, let's just take him to California for his birthday. It'll be super fun.
So we go and honestly, I had to put 2 little boys in like a different room and just...
Not a different hotel room. We were lucky we got a hotel room that had like the living room and then like the bedroom.
And we just tried to be quiet. But
oh my gosh. Anyways, going back to Arizona, that time was just another really just growth period and special time for our family, being away from family and honestly just kind of thinking we were setting down roots. Spending so much time building our home that we thought would be forever.
Yeah, like picking, like when you build a custom home, you're literally picking every single thing, the baseboards and their shape and their size to like where outlets are and where light switches are and obviously every electrical
and then when you
fixture,
also on top of it think it's like your forever home, you're like, I do not want to make mistakes in picking out finishes. I want the best of the best. This is going to be it for us. Like that's truly how we were building this house. So
we invested pretty hardcore in like all the plumbing, every light fixture. Like
all the tile. We were just like,
Yeah.
this is it. This is going to be it. We're so excited.
Yeah. Well, the big thing was that what we started realizing is that literally every month to maximum every other month,
Yeah.
we would either go to Utah or someone from Utah would come to us.
Yeah.
We're just really close to our families. And so it was really hard to be
We
away from each other.
were using any type of vacation time that we could have going to see family.
Yeah.
We very rarely just went to like California to have like a beach trip there. We would try to do things like that as much as we could, but most of our vacation and trip time was spent road tripping or flying to Utah.
Yeah.
Which we knew going into it that was going to be the case. That's why we liked Arizona, because we were like, it's still close enough that we can get on an hour flight.
Yeah.
It's not that far of a drive if we need to drive. A lot of things were very appealing about raising our family in
St.
Arizona.
George, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So, but we were just spending so much of our time. It was every month to every other month seeing family and
once Sid was pregnant with our third Sonny, it was kind of like a wake up call. Like, man, I don't know if we want to do this.
I think another wake up call was because we were visiting so much and our Haven and Beckham were getting older.
I don't know if you remember, there's a whole story behind that, but I think some of the portions of before we get to that story is what you were saying about, like, we were visiting a lot in summer 2021 and just started falling in love with the Wasatch Back.
Yeah.
My mom lives in Oakley, Utah, which is kind of like the next city east. It's
town. It's definitely not a city.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's like a village. No, it's not a village. It's so cute. It's just like this quaint little farm town, like 30 minutes from here.
There's really nothing there, but it is the most beautiful place ever. And we just had never known about it when we lived in Utah.
Yeah, or ever considered like, hey, should we move up into the mountains? Like,
we just thought if we were going to raise our family in Utah, it had to be Salt Lake County or Utah County. Yeah. It was one of the two, and for us and what we wanted for our kids, we didn't want that. And so we were like, we have to live outside of Utah.
Yeah.
When we were visiting so much and his mom had moved to Oakley, we fell in love with it. We were like, it was everything that I personally wanted for my kids. Obviously what Tay wanted. I grew up in really small towns. I was moving a lot growing up. A lot of my childhood was in Arizona. Some of it was in Texas, and I fell in love with I just fell in love with the small town feel, especially Texas. Like, that really made me just love that vibe. But even when you lived
in Arizona, it was like small.
It was. I was used to just really small town. And when we kind of started exploring different areas of the Wasatch Back, Heber, Midway, Oakley, Camas, we just like could not help but feel super drawn here and realize that it really was everything we wanted for our family and our kids. And being back by family was so appealing because our kids were getting older, and pulling them from their families. I like get emotional thinking about it because every time we left Utah, seeing Beckham's face, he was getting older and he hated leaving Utah. Like he hated leaving his grandparents and his aunts and uncles and his cousins. And I just remember every time we left, as we drove away and drove to the airport, I like looking in Beckham's big brown eyes and seeing how sad he was to leave was heartbreaking. And I think it came down to, for us, like, what is best for our kids, not what's best for us.
Yeah. So actually how we came to that kind of conclusion is, after kind of all these trips and kind of falling in love with the Wasatch Back and just like literally even joking sometimes. I remember we'd be driving the Wasatch Back and just be like, oh, it'd be so funny if we moved here one day. But obviously we're building our forever home in Arizona, so it wasn't really an option, but it was a joke, kind of. It was a running joke. So we go back to Arizona and we ended up taking a trip to Newport just to be there. And at the same time, over the 2 years of living in Gilbert, ACTA had grown a lot. It was growing a lot, and it was at a place where I had started some other endeavors, and I felt like it was in a good, healthy spot to sell and kind of move on to my next endeavors. And so while we were in Newport, we decided to stop by the Newport LDS Temple. And when we were there, I don't know if you remember this, but we went over to a bench and we had Beckham and Haven. They were running around, and we decided to pray and just tell Heavenly Father, we are so thankful for this enormous blessing of getting to sell ACTA, because at that time we had known the buyer was committed. And we just asked him, like, because of this huge blessing in our life, what can we do for thee? And the very immediate answer was, put your children first.
Yeah.
And at the time, I think it was just like,
yeah.
Obviously, like we doing
always
that.
Want to do that.
And we're obviously still living in Arizona. But when we really started talking about it, we had conversations about how we weren't putting our kids' needs first. Like we moved to Arizona because Sid and I loved it.
Yeah.
We moved to Arizona because Sid and I loved the neighborhood.
We loved the people. We loved that. Yeah. We just loved so many different things. The culture is really fun.
And we didn't move there because it was best for our kids.
Yeah.
And what was best for our kids maybe wasn't exactly what we wanted, even though that is probably what we want now. But what was best for our kids was so that they could be by the people that love them unconditionally. We all have grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins and family members that have changed our lives just directly because of their relationships with them and their love, and we were robbing them of that love. And so
fast forward to now, just to like make a point on that, seeing how them being around their family members affects them now, we 100% know we made the right choice. Like it has helped them and built them so and much. It will continue to do so. And an added plus to that is that we were able to be guided to a place that is also shaping them in a lot of ways. The culture in where we live, the school, the preschool that Beckham gets to go to, an outdoor preschool, which is unheard of in Arizona. It's unheard of really anywhere unless you live in the mountains. Like there's not, I don't know if there's anywhere in the valley. I was just talking to my sister the other day about how she wishes there was something. She lives in South Jordan, and how she wishes there was something so badly like an outdoor preschool for her little girl. And
but we're lucky to have that.
I just feel so grateful every day when I drive around and the boys say, like, we live in the mountains and Chick-fil-A is down the mountains and Target and Costco is down the mountains. They ask me every time we go somewhere, is it down the mountain or up the mountain? And as much of a drive it is to get to certain places, I would not trade it for the world. Right. I love the simplicity and contentment that I feel living here and what it brings.
We're surrounded by.
Oh, the beauty is in and of itself.
Honestly only like 25 minutes to the mouth of the canyon to get down to Target or wherever you need to go. So it's not that bad.
No, it's not bad at all.
And we still got a Walmart and a Smith's.
We have a Walmart and a Lee's.
Some restaurants, but it's small. It's small. Yeah. So when we kind of made that decision to put our kids first, we had to figure out what we were going to do with our Arizona home. And
there was a lot of still prayer and counsel that went into it.
Oh, and also when we made this choice, we didn't have any like land or home that we had purchased in Utah yet either.
When it comes down to it, a lot of people ask us like why did you sell like your beautiful home in Arizona? Like what was the reasoning behind all that? And I think that even just to answer how, when you feel like sometimes the Lord's plan is a lot different than what you imagined. And I still to this day think that living in Arizona was exactly the Lord's plan for us.
Yeah, it was.
Building that house was the Lord's plan for us. And we learned and grew so much in so many ways and through so many experiences that happened in Arizona. And that's what the Lord wanted for us. And maybe the land that we have in Utah now, or just different things, wouldn't have been the same if we would have tried to move here sooner. Totally. And it all fell into place how God wanted it to. And that is for him and his knowledge and his power and not our own. And it's confusing to a lot of people, but it makes sense to us now. And even leaving our beautiful home that we worked really hard on there was easy once we saw the bigger picture. The
quick story of how we ended up finding Midway, Utah, and where we're building now and hoping to move into before the end of the year is we came up here on a general conference weekend, which is basically a church conference where church leaders like our 12 apostles and the prophet and his counselors all speak to us and other general authorities. And it's a time to definitely feel close to heaven. And we were watching conference at my mom's house, and it was in between sessions. And the whole weekend we had been looking for anything, because it was 2021. So like, if you remembered real estate in 2021, anything
we were looking
listed,
for any rental, any land, anything that came up, because just anything in that area, even like it's growing a lot here even still. And we're just like, if anything comes up, like we would just be immensely grateful. We were at his mom's in Oakley. So we were in the area that we really wanted to be. We had kind of told our family like our goal was to move here at some point, and going into general conference, that was our huge question mark, is like when and how and where. We're building this beautiful home in Arizona. This is so different than what we had planned for our family.
So in between sessions, we leave the kids at my mom's house and we just drive to Midway, and we were like literally just even looking for signs of something that was available, because everything on like Zillow, Redfin, all the marketplaces, like there was just honestly nothing. And so we ended up just like parking and kind of honestly frustrated, like at a dead end. And I remember like even just like starting to get frustrated with each other, which is a little embarrassing. Just like we were just frustrated. And I remember looking up in the rearview mirror and I see like a sign across the street, and I was like, I wonder what that is. So I tell Sid, and we, go over to the sign, and we're like, okay, these lots, they look like something we'd like, a couple acres, like, but we didn't know if they were even available. They weren't online. So
most
I thought
things like that
sold.
Weren't like, we were like, there's no way these lots are available.
They were beautiful.
They're so pretty, and we didn't know how long that sign had been up. No. And because they weren't online, we were like, they're for sure sold.
So I don't even like text the owner, because it said like text if interested. And I just pull up to, there's 4 lots only on like about, I think it's like 15 to 20 acres total. And pull up to one of the lots. I look over, and there's just like this gorgeous willow tree, and like
the most gorgeous view.
See the back of Timpanogos Mountain, and you can see the back of Provo Canyon.
This cute brown country fence in the background, and just fields, rolling fields.
Rolling fields. And so I'm like, Sid, this is it.
It was
we both started bawling. She knew too.
And then we get out of the car and we're walking on it, and we're like, there's no way this is real.
I have this video, I'll put it on the screen, of Sid walking towards the willow tree. And that's the very first time we'd ever set foot on that land. We didn't even know if the property was available, but we knew we were home.
Yeah, it did feel like home. Like immediately it was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is everything we've wanted and hoped for and been searching for. It was like his mom calls it your homie radar. And it was
homing
like that.
Radar,
It was like that went off, and it was like peace.
Yeah, for years our homing radar has been like California, Arizona, like
we thought it was places. Arizona. We thought it had kind of gone off in Arizona,
and then it just. Yeah.
And then we kept walking, and we get to the end of the lot where the willow tree is, and there is this beautiful creek running through it. And I look over at Tay, and he is just bawling. Like his hands are on his eyes. He is just in full tears. And I just knew in that moment, like, this is everything that we felt in the temple, everything that we felt for years, trying to just find this one place, what we had been working for. And so Tay texts the number on the sign. He's like, I'm just wondering if any of your lots are for sale. Obviously we had felt really good about this one. And 2 of them were still available, and one of the ones was the lot that we were walking on. And it's crazy because that's our lot now. But after we had ended up closing on it, and we met the guy who owns the lot while we were visiting.
That night, I just want to put it on record. What for me, I was talking to an employee about this the other day. That night for me, and I think Sid too, was just incredible. My mom came with us too, if you remember, and just to watch the kids. And he was showing us like these ponds that were pulled out from the creek, and it was crazy. Like literally every 20 seconds, fish jumping out of the pond. It's
so funny because even now, looking back, our lot is we are completely obsessed with our lot, but like that night it was
going off. There were
like showing off for us, for sure.
Yeah, there were like deer, like 2 or 3 bucks in like a tree bed. There was white cranes flying over. There were ducks like landing in the creek. It was just amazing. It was at sunset as well. It was just like, what is this place? It just sold us so hard.
The owner was like quoting our favorite country songs to us. Yeah. Everything was just piecing together. And we felt the Lord's hand in it more than we ever had. And we just were like, this is it. And the owner was looking for certain people to sell the lot to because he owns the lot next to it. So he gets to pick his neighbors. And we were like, just hopefully he likes us. Like, and he had obviously got inquiries about it and a lot of people interested. And now, like, even looking back, if we wouldn't have got into Utah at that specific weekend, it would have been gone the next week, because he
told us later there
were a few families after us that he would have totally sold it to that were interested after. There's no way it would have been available if we found it at any other time. But I also don't think if we tried to find it earlier in life, he wouldn't have been like selling it. So everything just like the Lord's timing is always perfect. And
so then we ended up placing an offer, going back to Arizona.
Before we went back to Arizona, though, we were like, what do we do now? Do we go home and
kind
do we just hang out until our house is done? Do we stay in Arizona? Do we move into our house in Arizona till our house is done in Utah? Do we sell our house now? Our house wasn't done in Arizona at the time. We hadn't even...
It was like just drywalled. Like, there was nothing.
We were getting close to like the super fun parts of the Arizona house. But anyways, we were looking for rentals after we found our lot. We went back to Tay's mom's house and we had tears in our eyes, told her we had found the place. And we were looking tirelessly that weekend for any rentals that would come up while we were there, just to go see them. The day that we were leaving that next Monday. So 2 days later, a rental came up, and we were like we were texting the lady who owned it. We were like, can we please come and see this? I
remember trying to apply, and it said like 19 applicants, and it had just been listed.
And we were like, there's no way we'll get it. There's no way. And then the lady was slower at getting back, but we were literally supposed to leave that day. We were supposed to go get on our plane. We also
felt to extend our trip one day, and that was the day that she ended up texting back.
She finally texted back. We had our trip extended a day, so we met her at the house, walked through it. They were like, "This is perfect.
We want it done.
We want it." And
that's the house we're in today, right now, baby.
That's the house we're in. We're in the basement, and even just finding this rental was a miracle, because I talk to people. They're like, so what are you in now while you're building your home? We're like, we're in a rental. They're like, oh, you're super, like, so many people say you're super lucky that you found a rental.
Yeah.
And even just like crazy. The prices of rentals before we found this one were out of control. Like, so there were just miracles happening for that. And
so we go back to Arizona and still have the big question mark of like, okay, like now we got to pack up in 30 days and sell our home, our dream home. Because
when we found this rental, we were like, we'll be in whenever you want us to. Like we were like, we'll do anything at your mercy. We just want this house.
Yeah, but it tends to be that when you decide to take a leap of faith with the Lord, that other things work out in your life.
Yeah.
And that's honestly what happened. I think we have no credit given to ourselves of how the home sold the way that it did, but we didn't list the home on Zillow or any marketplaces. We didn't have a realtor.
Yeah.
We were able to connect with a buyer through our builder off the market, like through a private sell, that like knew it was their home. And it was obviously a very rewarding feeling. Basically spending those 2 years building our dream home for a family that was well deserving, that we loved, that we knew would cherish the home.
It's so cool because our builder had known this couple and their family, and they had been asking our builder if he was building specs or anything in the neighborhood, because they wanted to live in that neighborhood. And he was like, no, I'm not. And then obviously when he found out we were selling our home, we met them at the house one day, walked them through it, kind of gave them all of our vision for the home because it wasn't done yet. We had all of our furniture purchased for the home, because obviously we're planning on moving into it and having it be everything we wanted. And so we were like, we want to sell the home with the furniture, because like our rental wasn't big enough for like this new furniture we had bought, and it was set up for the home and the dimensions of our home. And so we wanted to sell it with the furniture, and that is exactly what they wanted. They're this cute family. They're a young couple who have 3 kids just like us, around the same ages.
Yeah.
It was honestly crazy. And I know, going, like, even looking back and seeing them in the home, that home was meant to be for them. Yeah. And building it was an incredible experience. And it was and at the end of the day, it was for them and their family. And it's just really cool to see how the Lord works and his hand in things, because at the end of the day, like, he knew what they needed. He knew what we needed, and here we are today now in a place that we are so happy. And what are you doing with your career? Where are you at now, Tay?
Yeah. So Acta ended up being sold, and
you started a software company while you had Acta.
Yeah. So about 2 years into Acta, I started 2 other companies, and the first one did great, still doing great to this day, but it's pretty much passive at this point. I only spend, I don't know, an hour a month on it or something like that. And then the other one though was very, very startup mode. It took 2 years developing this software called Redo, and just Sid and I really believed in the idea. And man, there's a whole story behind that one too. It has been a very trying company in many ways. And ended up deciding to go all in by selling Acta, going all in to Redo, and
Tay tends to just minimalize things, and I know we're running out of time, but Redo, he had the idea for Redo, and we put a lot of our savings and funds into Redo because it is a software that takes a lot of finances to develop, and we put our finances into that, and it has been 2 years in the making. 3 years in the making, but 2 years in the making of doing it on your own, trying to develop it and start it on your own. And finally, after 2 years, it was his first company that he decided to be backed by a VC firm and get an investment in it. And
all the other companies we'd ever started was just through our own money. So we didn't have investors, we didn't have partners, but this was one.
Didn't have family helping, literally just on our own finances and figuring it out. And I'm so proud of him because obviously Redo took a lot of time and years and just a lot. It was a lot of trying times. And I just remember telling him, like, just don't give up on this one. Like, it feels really special. Don't give up on it. We know what we felt at the beginning, and 2 years after all of those feelings and promptings, he went and pitched it to a VC firm all on his own. They were shocked that he was the only one.
They're amazing. They're like probably top 1 or 2 VCs in Utah. They're really cool.
Yeah.
They've been super helpful.
And now he has amazing employees and amazing VC firm backing it, and that has been really cool experience for his career as well. And I just had to shout him out for that because he doesn't talk much about those things, and I think he should, because there are things that he's worked really hard for. There are things that we've put a lot on the line for, and high risk, high reward. But
you work insanely hard at the home and even supporting me when I need it too through these companies. But so we ended up moving to Heber, Utah, and we cannot forget the most important part of the story. Sunny J was born here.
Sunny J was born in Heber, Utah, which we love. We love that she was born in somewhere that we really do feel
something cool about her birth is she was born on 2/22/22 in the 22nd hour, and she is 22 months apart from her older brother Haven, and Haven is 22 months apart from his older brother. And
2
Beckham.
Was always my number in sports growing up.
Pretty
so 2 is our
insane.
family number, I am telling you. And it is, we have our 3 kids. They're really close together. That's a topic for another podcast episode, because just raising 3 kids at a really, even me at a young age, and our kids being really young, is a wild ride. But we love those little ones more than anything in this world. And
so now you pretty much know the basics of the story. There's a lot of other things
I honestly went into this episode thinking we were going to get it done so quick and there wouldn't be enough to talk about, but I feel like we had to skip over so many smaller details to get through. And I'm sorry if we were jumping around and remembering things, because we just wanted to go into this episode just like not talking. We haven't talked to or told this story for a long time, so we're like, let's just go into it and tell the story. It is really cool to look back on and really cool to tell you guys. But if it was choppy and all over the place, we are sorry. Ask questions if you have them.
Yeah, our next podcast will be a little more focused and organized. But this is a good one for you guys, just to get at least a general basis of where we've been in our marriage the past 7 years, or 7 years of since our first date, 6.5 married. But so now that you know that story, if you have any questions about the journey or how certain things were, or what happened in certain times, like please shoot us a DM on Instagram or comment on the video or the podcast and let us know, because we'd be really happy to dive into that in another episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I feel like we didn't even touch on like parenting and motherhood and fatherhood. We just kind of touched on the bigger things. So even just the ins and outs of being an entrepreneur's wife and how that works as a mother, and vice versa, how it is being an entrepreneur and all of that. But yep, here we are today. We're building our home. We hope to get in it this year before the holidays. And we are so grateful to have you guys here through this journey of ours, and can't wait for more to come.
Absolutely. So we will see you on the next episode of Down Home Podcast, and Sid's going to close us off with your saying, don't forget it.
Have courage and be kind. We love you guys.
Thanks for listening.